Hello and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. I'm Conor. Albert Breer is here, and we're doing a slightly abridged Monday show because we know that everybody's running around, everybody's wrapping presents. I'm sure everybody has not completed all of the things to do on their list. There's elves to pacify. There's chimneys to prepare, and so
we'd hope your commute to the mall is shorter than your commute to work. So we'll try to help you out with that.
Albert's showing his age and telling everyone that they still shop at the mall before Christmas. But I will say this: that the mall, what the mall has become, has been it's the haven for the people who wait until the absolute last minute, and
right, which is like my wheelhouse.
Yeah. And so I was, because Amazon at this point, forget about it, pal. Like, and like OG Amazon, when they were trying to impress you, right? I mean, it used to be like 4.5 hours before Christmas, and they were like, don't worry, we can get it there. Like, we'll send somebody with a parachute. And now it's just like, yeah, you know what? You might get it halfway through January. You might not.
We actually had like a couple of things for the kids that legitimately got lost, and Emily had to like call and like basically yell at somebody, and then they sent us new ones. So I don't know if that means that we're going to be getting 2 of each of these, or like one before Christmas and then another one like at some point in January, right? Like that seems like maybe the likely outcome.
I went to Target the other day because I needed to get one of my wife's family. We do like a white, like one of those. I forget what you call it, but it's like where you can steal the gift. It's like a gift thing.
Yankee swap?
Can steal it. Yeah, Yankee swap. Yeah, right. And so we needed to get little cans of soda because we had a bottle of whiskey that we were giving to someone, and you wanted to pair it with a little can of soda. So I just went to Target because they had little cans of soda. That place is a nuclear wasteland right now. It is
Target,
just like, there's like 4 things on the shelf.
Oh, it looks like COVID, yeah.
I looked around.
It's like the toilet paper aisle during COVID.
It's insane. Like the Lego aisle is completely pillaged, and I looked at like one dad on the way in, and it looked like he was going in there.
There's like one Lego set from like 2007 sitting there.
It's like a Star Wars movie that came out, like before the pandemic, and you're just looking at this dad, and you're just being like, oh, sorry, dude. I think you're a little late on this one. So anyway, we're gonna let you guys.
I will say this one last thing. Like, it's just one thing I've learned in the last 2 years is I have had to pull on my connections a little bit here. Jerseys are actually hard to come. They're like video games back in the day. Like they run out.
Jerseys are hard.
Yeah, jerseys are hard for kids.
Jerseys are hard. Jerseys are hard. I mean, concert tickets, any sort of event tickets are harder than they've ever been. Certain reservations, like, I mean, I've had to try to pull a lever on those. There's a place that my wife wants to go to dinner or something like that. So I mean, it's not easy, it's not easy being, helping out the big man in the red suit. All right, so we're going to start by taking a look at the playoff picture, and listen, this is where we're at now. I mean, from now until the end of the season, all the playoff machines are turned on. The probability machines are turned on. It's worse. I made this complaint on another show, but it's worse than the pre-election polls. Like every news outlet has the needle, and guess what? They're all wrong. Like every single one of them. And I love Steve Kornacki, but like Maricopa County, how they vote left, right, blue, red. I mean, we don't know any of this stuff. But so what to me? What does according to the NFL, what does the Broncos having a 76% probability of making the playoffs mean? Like that is completely meaningless to me, right? Yeah. Like, let's just get down to it. And so here are the teams right now that we're looking at in the AFC that have clinched a playoff spot. The Chiefs are in, the Bills are in, the Steelers are in, the Texans are in, and the Ravens are in. Yep. The big question here, the Ravens and the Steelers, they can flip seeding here. The Ravens beat the Steelers over the weekend. They can can win that division and climb.
So the Steelers still have this tiebreaker, though, right?
The Steelers still have the tiebreaker, but the win sets the Ravens up for an easier path to win the division if because the Steelers' end of season path is not an easy one, right?
It's Chiefs and then Bengals, right?
Correct. And
Yeah.
so there is a path here for Baltimore to clear out some space here and to catch the Steelers because they don't look. They don't look. The Steelers don't look like they should.
They did. Yeah.
The Steelers don't look like they did. You're right. And so on the other end here, there's only 3 teams that have clinched in the NFC. We have the Lions, the Eagles, and the Vikings. And then up in the air here, I mean, the Rams, the Falcons, the Packers, the Commanders, the Buccaneers, and the Seahawks. Right. All kind of floating in that above 10% range. And I should mention over in the AFC too, on the bubble there, we have the Bengals with the Colts 15%, the Dolphins 8%, the Bengals 7%. I actually think the Bengals, any of these things are relatively possible when you think about it,
The Bengals, the Bengals are in a very strange position of on Wednesday needing that Chiefs Steelers game has become very relevant to them because right now, one piece of it's very much in their hands. They beat the Broncos. I think that's on Saturday, right? That was one of the games they moved to Saturday. So if they beat the Broncos on Saturday, now they're only a game back at Denver, and they have the tiebreaker on them. Now they need the Colts and the Dolphins to lose one along the way here, but then all of a sudden they're in a position where if the Broncos lose in Week 18, then they're winning in, and that makes Wednesday's game very, very relevant to them because the Chiefs and the Steelers play. The Chiefs have a chance to win home field throughout the playoffs, and if the Chiefs win that game, now all of a sudden, are we looking at Carson Wentz in Week 18 playing against the Broncos?
I mean, the way that they were describing Patrick Mahomes' ankle, it seemed like, he would need a medvac helicopter and we'd see Carson Wentz for the rest of his life. But it turns out, watch the game on Saturday,
It's okay.
Yeah, it looks okay. Just kind of like it did in the second half of the Super Bowl. I think his ankle will be all right. Maybe it's durable. Maybe the Chiefs have a good relationship with Advil, or something like that. But it seems like everything's all right. So we can scroll through over this weekend again. I mean, this was not your kind of dominant slate of games, but the Saturday 21st games, Chiefs 27, Texans 19, and then the Ravens 34, Steelers 17. It was interesting to see them put those games up against the college football playoff, even though that none of the college football playoff games were good. I think it was fun, it was new, and I think that they'll tweak the formula. So I think that's the one day that the NFL will probably have to back out of because
I made this point that day. I think there's a way to do that right though, don't you? You could turn that into a celebration of the sport instead
stagger it.
Yeah, stagger it, right? And that's what I'm saying. I think if you could stagger the starts the way they do with the Monday night games, and I think I know there was some talk of it. In fact, I was pretty surprised when I saw the start times for Saturday. Because I thought at one point they had intended to start the games at 2:30 and 5:30, which I think would have been close to perfect, right? If you had done it that way. I think this is not killing the NBA on Christmas Day, right? Where the NFL can go in like a shark and just gobble up the minnows. This to me, is you want to protect college football if you're the pros. College football is your free minor league. College football provides you with ready-made stars. College football fuels interest in the draft. College football doing well is good for the NFL in so many different ways. And so I think just kind of, driving your flag into the ground and say, we have always had the third Saturday in December, I think is short-sighted. And that's actually part of their antitrust exemption is that they can't play Saturday games between the second Saturday in September and the second Saturday in December. So their argument is we wait for the entire season before we can do this. This has always been our Saturday. But the college football is working with limited real estate too. So anyway, I think that there's a way and they did meet. I think there's a way where if they all kind of got together and sat down and talked through it, you could turn this weekend into a big celebration of the sport,
Yeah.
I think there's a way to do it. They just need to work together on it.
All right, so let's get into our
Yep.
takeaways from the weekend, and you can read everything at si.com. We got a website. It's nice. All this
There's a lot
stuff
going
is
on over
there,
there.
and then there's a magazine too. Because I hear people and they say, "Well, what do I do if I'm in an airplane? How do I get Sports Illustrated?" Well, see, this is something that we do that nobody else does. We have a magazine, so you can buy it, and you
Yeah.
can take it with you on the airplane, which
And
is
if
pretty
the
cool.
internet's shaky on the plane, like magazine's still there.
It's like
Don't need
having
you.
the internet on paper. Imagine that. We used to do that, back in the day.
I used to
It's
love that back in the day. I was picking up a couple magazines at the airport, you
I still
know?
do. I have.
Yeah.
I'm in my living room right now. I have like five of them right there on the.
Yeah.
I go to Barnes and Noble and I pick up two copies of SI always, and then
Hmm.
every time, and then I'll browse.
Yeah.
Sometimes Magnolia Journal with Chip and Joanna Gaines. They have some nice stuff in there. Or
Yeah. Hudson News always had a good selection of all the preview magazines too. Like no matter what time of year it was, there'd be some preview magazines, whether it was time for the NBA preview, the baseball preview, the college football, NFL previews. Like their Hudson News was always well stocked with like Street and Smith and Athlon and
oh yeah.
all of those different ones. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned one of those, but like there's always a good selection there. Sporting News had a good one. I like their work back then.
Williams and Sonoma catalog. What is Underdog? Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Just call your shot by picking higher or lower on two or more players' stats. Underdog is for everyone, so you can make a play with only $1 or go big and win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are ice cold? Make your picks in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real money. Try Red Zone Rush, a game that you're not going to find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a touchdown by swiping right for yes and left for no. It's as simple as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. Join over 5 million fans that are already playing on Underdog with their Pick'em game, and you could win money by making entries with your favorite players. Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em, so sign up now and deposit using promo code MMQB to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Now, I'm not a gambler, but I have friends who are on Underdog, and they love it because it's easy. You don't have to learn about all the jargon. You don't have to learn about overs and unders and stats and all this kind of different stuff. You can just pick higher or lower. You can just pick whether or not a team's going to score or not. It's a good intro app. Download the app today and use code MMQB to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's MMQB for $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown. Just select higher or lower on Underdog. You must be 18 years or older, 19 in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Are you concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. The first one here I want to talk about,
Yep.
Albert, you were on kind of the game of the week here, the Commanders edging out the Eagles,
Hmm.
and 36-33, we had a lot of Kenny Pickett in this game, so you have to take that grain of salt. That said, Jaden Daniels has a 5 touchdown performance. Most of his balls are, Terry McLaurin was the second leading receiver, but he's spreading it around for most of the game. It's, your B, C, D guys.
Yeah.
This was a nice game for him. Sort of some strange sort of mental lapse there at the end by the Eagles defense to allow that last minute touchdown and the 2-point conversion. But what was your takeaway from this game?
Yeah, I think it's like so. I just think it's the changing of the mentality in Washington, like where I felt like there was a dozen points in that, like in the second half of that game, where it very easily could have been like, here we go again. You know what I mean? Like that and we all know that, like with certain franchises that have been snake bitten, there's that mentality that can get in a player's head, in a coach's head, even, with new groups coming in where it's like, all right, like one bad thing happens and now three more bad things are going to happen. They had 5 turnovers in that game.
Right.
A lot of things did go wrong down the stretch, even like on the 2 minute drill. And I thought this was such an interesting thing. When I dug into it yesterday and did some reporting on it, the Jaden Daniels run on 2nd and 3 where he came up short,
Yes.
and went to 3rd and 1, right?
Hmm.
So that was actually, and they had to burn their last time out. That was actually an RPO. And
Oh,
the
wow.
signal didn't get out to the receivers. And so in the moment, Jaden Daniels had to react. And like, so I know a lot of people said, like, well, did someone miss their block? No, they were blocking up an RPO. And the receivers didn't get the signal. He looks out to the side, like it's not there for him. And then he tucks it and runs it and tries to pick up the first down. And he doesn't wind up getting it, but to have the presence of mind to react in that situation where it could have been a total disaster, and come out of it okay. And then to be like buttoned up enough to take the 3rd and 1, pick up the first down, clock it, and then have a play ready to go that you felt like was going to work. And they ran the play. They ran the play in Thursday's practice in a red zone period that wound up winning the game for them. Went the exact same way they had drawn it up. Like I just think there's so many examples of like the operation being better in Washington than it's been in a long time. And there just being a belief now because of Jaden, and because of what Dan Quinn and his staff have kind of instilled there. And, you even see it like with some of the stuff that like Terry McLaurin said after the game about how like, he's going to ride with five and everything else. Like it's just like I feel like the mentality of that place has shifted. And this was a point of the year when it very easily could have gone the wrong way. I mean, they're not playing as well as they were earlier in the year. There was a point where they were a freight train, and you look at it, and I mean, like they had the three straight losses. Um, they almost blew the game last week in New Orleans. I mean, there's a reason for there to be some bad vibes there right now. Like if you wanted some of the old stuff to creep into your head, it really could have, and it hasn't. And I think that's a credit to, a quarterback who came in a mature, grown up player, having played 5 years in college and for two different programs. And, it's happened with a head coach coming in who I think's learned a lot of lessons, going into his second shot at running a program.
The Commanders are interesting to me because I think, this is one of those, not I don't know what you'd call it. It sort of reminds me a little bit of the Giants' first season with Brian Dable, where
it's like a bonus season, like where if you win, it's like you're still building, like you still have holes.
Right. And so, you're in this position where, okay, you're 10-5, and it's such a like the NFL is so strange how this goes, right? You're 10-5. You got clubbed by the Buccaneers in your season opener. You beat the Giants in week 2 because the Giants had an injured kicker, right? And then the kicker got re-injured during the game. Then you have wins over, crushing Arizona 42-14. There's a quality win there.
Yeah.
But, you lose to Baltimore. You beat Carolina. You barely beat Chicago on a Hail Mary at the end of the game, then barely beat the Giants the next week, then a 3-game losing streak against the three of the best teams on your schedule. And then barely beat New Orleans 20-19 in a game that Spencer Rattler could have taken from you at the last second. And so it's one of those that it's like, we have to appreciate what's going on while also,
there's a resilience, but I think you also have to, I think what you're getting at is like, there's also the reality that they're not there yet,
right.
like, and that like Jaden Daniels getting hit a lot. Well, why is that? Because their tackle situation still isn't settled, right?
Right.
They still need edge rushers. Corner was like a dumpster fire until they got Marshawn Lattimore there, and and I think he'll really help. But even the acquisition of Lattimore, and like I don't think that was just for this year. That was because like we know we're going to have needs at like multiple premium positions in the off season, so we might as well take care of one of them now. I'm with you on that. Like I think that there's they still have a long way to go from a roster standpoint. I think that the guys there, DQ, AP, all those guys, like I think they're all realistic about it. And I think what you're seeing is like a very real resilience and belief that probably hasn't really existed there, like at least in a sustained way, um, in a quarter century because of who was running the team, because of the owner. And so, I think it almost feels like an expansion team is the best way to describe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I would just caution people like, look at the Texans this year. It's not going to be, it's not a straight line.
It's not a straight line,
right? My first takeaway here, I want to get into Michael Penix and his first start because the Falcons are now squarely back into the playoff race after the Buccaneers lost to the Cowboys. So the Falcons dismantled the Giants 34-7, and it was, I guess in hindsight, a good move to make Michael Penix's start against the worst team in the NFL. The Giants now have the number 1 pick, a franchise record 10-game losing streak.
And God, they looked dead, didn't they?
And they really did. 2 pick sixes from Drew Lock. The second one was, I mean, you mentioned a miscommunication. It probably was, but the highlight nature of the tape of Evan Neal just diving into the ground and then having a player run straight through, bat a pass in the air, and Drew Lock getting picked off doesn't look good. But my takeaway from this is, Michael Penix had a pedestrian stat line, but and this is one of these things that's sort of like it's a precarious deal now where I feel like if you're on social media and you cover football, there's this like new push from the fans with all these analytic stats and all the, all the film watching at our disposal to be like, do you even watch the tape? Do you even watch the tape? And it's like, yeah, man, we do. We watch every game every year and have since 2010, and that's how it is, but Michael I'm going to sound like those people for 1 second. 18 of 27 for 202 yards and a pick does not come close to illustrating how good Michael Penix was in this game. I thought Michael Penix was fantastic. I went back and I watched all of his throws a couple of times last night, rewatched them again this morning, and my thought was, if I could etch it out, I would probably say that was like a 260, 270-yard game, 2 touchdowns and no picks, because the interception came, right at the end of the half. They were doing kind of a 2-minute situation.
It almost looked like Kyle Pitts was throwing the game.
Like literally, yeah.
It looked like he looked like a hook and ladder almost.
Looked like he was playing for Boston College in the 80s. Yeah, he just shoveled the ball into the end zone to the other team and to the Giants. And so, by the way, my team is in the fantasy playoffs. We went totally berserker. We had Tua and Geno, and we were just sick of rotating, and all of our players were injured. This was just a waiver wire team. And so I said,
"Why up mentality?"
Yeah, so I was like, why don't we I'm sick of dealing with Tua and Geno. Let's pick up Michael Penix and let's start him in the fantasy playoffs.
Wow.
And if he goes off and we love him, then he'll be our keeper for next year. And you don't lose the round penalty for the keeper because he's a free agent and nobody else wanted him. And so that was the thought process, right? But, Penix should have had 2 touchdowns. And I'm watching Kyle Pitts just hand the ball. I'm watching Penix just hand the ball to the other team, and I'm like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Or Pitts, I'm sorry. I'm watching Pitts just hand the ball to the Giants. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? But here are my thoughts here. So I think that Penix got rid of the ball. He was, at least in the early window, I'll have to check on the late window, but if you combine the Saturday games and the early window, no quarterback got rid of the ball faster than Penix. He shook defenders off consistently and avoided sacks. I think he was pressured 14 times, but didn't take a sack. And he's big and broad, so you notice he's able to throw guys off of his shoulders and then get rid of the ball and kind of not throw those dumb incompletions, not get the intentional grounding penalties. And he just has a cannon. I mean, he really does remind me of Matt. He looks like Matt Stafford in so many ways.
It's funny you say that because people there told me that, and there are a couple of guys there, and Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, who would know because they were just with Matthew Stafford.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he is big. He's strong. He always throws from a good platform. 5 of his first 9, I think, attempts involved a drop of some kind, And so if you're the Falcons, you have to figure out how to bring this along to the point where being the Falcons doesn't get in the way of Michael Penix's development. Because guess what? When Arthur Smith was there, this was the second most explosive offense in terms of explosive plays in the NFL behind Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins, okay? But they had Desmond freaking Ridder at quarterback, okay?
Yeah.
So you bring in Kirk Cousins and you say, oh, that's the problem, then we'll fix it, right? Well, Kirk Cousins, 15 weeks into the season is not going to be part of the Falcons anymore long term. So what we're getting at is this idea that, like, the Falcons built a fantasy football team, okay? And it's just not a very good one. And, Drake London is great. Bijan Robinson is great. Kyle Pitts probably wasn't worthy of the number 4 overall pick. I think he's dealt with some injury issues. I think he's still trying to figure things out. Yep. I think how he's best utilized in the NFL, I think that's still an ongoing question. It might take 2 or 3 coaches to figure that out for Kyle Pitts, or Kyle Pitts to figure that out. But, Michael Penix can at least get them closer, I think, to the dynamic that we imagine the Falcons being able to produce with all of these talented guys, right? I think that's the best way to look at it. But do I think he could win out with them and get them into the playoffs? I don't see why not. He didn't run the ball at all. And I know that's not part of his game, but he didn't even leave the pocket. And I think there's a lot more meat on the bone. But I was impressed. I thought this was a good debut from Penix.
Yeah, and I think it's like most certainly going to raise the ceiling for them, because I think he opens the playbook for them. And just having talked to some people there, I know, but Kirk was hurt. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble here, but Kirk was hurt. And he came off the Achilles, he wasn't driving the ball the same. That kind of resolved itself in October. Then in November against the Saints, he banged up his elbow and shoulder. And really, they felt like they were limited in what they could do with him schematically, limited what they could call for him. And, I think to some degree, that reached its breaking point with, over the last couple of weeks, him holding the ball and not being as quick to trigger, which told the coaches he's lost confidence in his ability to put the ball in certain spots. And that's sort of the death knell for a quarterback. It's not saying he can't come back from it next year with some other team. But for right now, they felt like Penix was the guy. And here's the other thing. It's another one of these high volume college players. You know what I mean? It's another guy like a Jaden Daniels or a Bo Nix who played a lot in college. And so they felt like he was ready to go week 1. If they needed to pull the trigger, if they needed to throw him out there, they could have.
Right.
And so I think he's thoroughly prepared. He's talented. He's been through a lot. He's had some ups and downs. And, I do think he should give them a better chance. Just by virtue of them being able to call more things and being able to do more things and being able to leverage the talent they've been able to build on offense more ways. And they didn't need him to do it against the Giants either. That's the thing is, you draw it up, 2 pick sixes sort of takes care of it for you,
Absolutely. He's going to have a lot more on his shoulders, but nice little runway for him to take off. All right, we got 2 more here. Albert, I know that the Buccaneers game I thought was fascinating on Sunday night, ended up being interesting. I had a lot of very serious complaints about, I was channeling my high school football coach. You got to have 2 hands on the ball, Rachaad White, when the game is on the line. Come on.
Yeah, that was weird the way he carried, he just hung it out there. And then it didn't even it got stripped after he tucked it away. You know what I mean? But I think it still had an effect, that he was pulling it in.
I know.
Right.
Tighten it up.
Yeah, high and tight.
I say this. I had 3 career carries for 9 yards. So let's be real. But Mike McCarthy is winning these games, Albert, and now we're seeing him with Jerry Jones after the game. Is there a world where Jerry Jones gives him? Standard coaching contract is 5 years now. Can we see Mike McCarthy getting locked in for another 5 years?
And that's the trouble. You know what I mean? It's if he still had a year left in his contract, I think we're probably talking about him.
This is why Jerry Jones not extending him.
Right.
After a couple of these years is coming back to bite him. And this is what he does with all of his players. Wait, overpay.
Yeah.
Wait, overpay. And now you're going to have to do it with Mike McCarthy on the coaching front if you want to keep him. And listen, Mike McCarthy's won a lot of games here, and his bad seasons are only coinciding with just disastrous, ruinous situations with quarterback injuries.
Yeah, and I think I think the locker room is very much showing you what they think of him. And I think the coolest thing is like the way the defense played at the end, because that defense was terrible earlier in the year, and it was a really tough transition from them for them going from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer. And one thing they wanted to do in going to Zimmer was, be able to do more to bring pressure, be more creative and more multiple, bringing pressure and really kind of make more plays defensively. And you saw that at the end of the game with the turnovers. The play Jordan Lewis makes down the field to basically take a touchdown away. And then the job Deron Bland, who's like I mean, it's almost hard to like. It's almost like it's almost weird, like how much of a magnet for the ball Deron Bland is. Like, you know what I mean? But he goes and he creates that turnover and covers it. Um, I think we've seen all the way around like how that team feels about Mike McCarthy, because every opportunity has been out there to roll over, and I even think that the start of this winning streak like says everything. Because if you look at it, they're in one of those situations that's brand new this year, right? Like for the first time, the league is pushing the teams into these 3 games in 10 days situations. Jets had one at the beginning of the year. Obviously, the 4 teams that'll be playing on Christmas are dealing with it now. And the Cowboys had it playing Monday, Sunday, and then Thanksgiving. And the front end of that was that loss to Houston.
Right.
And they lost 34-10. I didn't even think the Texans played very well in that game. The Cowboys looked like they were done. They were 3-7, and that's where the winning streak started. So, like to me, it's just I'll put it this way to you. If you're Jerry, and we're not advocating for rule breaking here, but if you're Jerry, aren't you back channeling to a few guys right now where you're saying, all right, like I got to be pretty sure what I'm going to get if I'm going to detach from this. You know what I mean? Like I better be pretty sure, like it better be like Mike Vrabel or someone like that. Like if I'm going to move on from Mike McCarthy, like this is not a situation where, we're going to roll the dice on some young guy. I don't know. That's the way I feel, at least. Like if you're going to replace him, you better know who you're going to get.
My sense, I would imagine the
And Vrabel is a
Jaguars.
name that's sort of, I've heard connected to Dallas anyway.
I would imagine that, and again, we don't know. We're going to get to Ben Johnson in a second. That's the last takeaway.
Yeah.
We don't know what Ben's going to be like as a head coach, and the opinions on that are all over the map,
Yep.
right? But we do know that he can call plays, and I think what is safe to say is that my guess is that Jacksonville is probably preparing to
I
arm
think
up for this.
Jacksonville's the one for him. Yeah.
I think that Jacksonville's the one, like we're putting all of our bullets in this one and we're going to cut it loose. Chicago is probably your number 2 there. Both of those would probably be attractive to Ben too, right? But, so if you're Dallas, it's like, okay, I'm sitting here possibly at number 3.
Yep.
If the Buccaneers were to move on from Bowles, maybe, like, okay, I'm tied for 3rd as the possible 3rd best opening. And it takes a certain person to work for me, all that kind of stuff. McCarthy already gets it. I don't know. What would you, if you had to handicap this right now, stay or go for McCarthy, what would you say?
I'd probably still say go just because of the contract.
Okay.
And maybe it's just run its course.
Right.
But I don't think he deserves it. You know what I mean?
No.
I don't think he deserves. Like I think he deserves, and I should even say that like in past tense, deserved a new contract a while ago.
Right.
Like he won 12 games 3 years in a row. It's so interesting. I think I made this analogy earlier in the year. It's like the NFC East is the SEC. And all these teams are like Auburn, where there's just like ridiculously high bar based on what? Like 12 games 3 years in a row, 12 wins 3 years in a row isn't good enough. Why? Because Dallas has been winning championships so consistently before this. You know what I mean? Like you look at Philly, like, and yeah, Philly's won a championship relatively recently, but they won one. Sirianni got to a Super Bowl, and he's made the playoffs his first 3 years after inheriting a 4-win team and having to kind of captain a quarterback transition with them moving from Wentz to Hurts. So like you look at the body of work with some of these guys, and it's like, hey, like they deserve a stay of execution like more than 80% of the guys who actually get one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like even if things had gone the wrong way for Nick or Mike, like I almost feel like those guys would deserve the stay of execution more than most guys who are afforded that.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I think the environment with those teams are all in that division. They're all historic. The pressure in those markets is high to win. The standards are high, whether those that's justified or not. Um, it's just different, and maybe that's what winds up getting Mike in the end.
Yeah. We're going to round this one out with Ben Johnson, like I said.
Yep.
And, the stumble bum is my favorite play call in the Ben Johnson canon at this point. But if you go back, the Lions actually have YouTube compilations of his best trick play calls, and the depth of this is staggering. But he comes to Jared Goff, he asks him if he's able to fumble the ball on purpose earlier in the week because he sees on tape that Jordan Love last year against the Bears fumbled the ball during a similar concept, and he saw how the Bears, they have these good linebackers and how they reacted to it. So he asked Goff, hey, can you fumble the ball and pick it back up? Goff's like, I don't think so. And so what they settle on is him and Jahmyr Gibbs literally tripping over themselves and then standing back up, and all you're doing is running tight end leak, okay? It's a staple play for all the Shanahan guys. The Lions are effective with it because they run the ball.
You block and then you release.
Right. You block and you release and then you get vertical. But the Lions run the ball to their left tackle more than any team in the NFL, right? So it's a perfect call. But you add in the wrinkle of the trip in the backfield, the linebacker's eyes shoot right to what's going on. Because you have to imagine what they're thinking. Like, what on earth is happening here? And then all of a sudden you look and Sam Laporta has crossed your face and he's in the end zone. And for Ben, it's like you called it for this specific opponent, and it had to be in, I saw fans being like, why didn't they save that for the Super Bowl? Well, because you might not get that look. You might not get that defense. You're certainly not playing the Bears in the Super Bowl, And so you save it, or you run it now because it's the only time you can run it. But I do think, just like the Seahawks became enamored with Mike McDonald after they got their asses beat by the Ravens last year, I wonder if Chicago is standing there and just being like, boy, that'd be nice to have, that was.
Yeah, they could. I'd be interested to see if he thinks because I think Ben's calculus with this will be different than it's been the last couple of years. And I think a big part of it for Ben, because I do think he'll have options, is can I align myself with the current regime that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere? And is ownership here aware enough of what's really affected this organization and made this organization a train wreck over the last 15 years and showing a willingness to go and fix it? And so, and I think on the flip side, Chicago's got to ask, do we want somebody who's going to come in and help us with one player or somebody who's going to help us with the big picture? So that's stuff that I think they would have to work through. I think Ben would have taken the Chicago job if he was offered it last year. If it had come open, if Eberflus had been let go after last year. I think he's going to be pickier this year. And so I do think that I think it's on the table, but I think there's a lot that they would have to work through to feel comfortable. I think there's a lot Ben would have to work through to feel comfortable with the way things are set up there versus going to a place like Jacksonville, where I think to some degree you would have an open canvas, you know what I mean, to kind of paint it the way that you want to paint it.
Well, I think we're going to be hearing a lot about.
I would say one last thing too on the Lions. I think one thing that kind of got brushed on, one thing that I think is really important, that seems simple, that Dane Campbell said last week. Did you hear this?
Yes.
We'll win how we have to win. It doesn't matter how we do it. And I think they showed that on Sunday with how aggressive they were offensively and what they can do when they lean into Ben Johnson and Jared Goff in the passing game. Jamison Williams came alive. I that's what I'm really impressed with. It's a very Parcellsian thing for Dan Campbell, where it's all right, what does our team look like right now? It doesn't matter what we thought it was going to be 2 months ago. Let's just be that. And I think that's what makes them, regardless of the injuries, makes them, I think maybe still a favorite to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC, is they can be what they need to be on any given Sunday. And I think that game against the Bears, as bad as the Bears have been, shows it.
That's going to do it for us this week. We appreciate you making us a part of your holiday routine. Hopefully we got you through maybe a snowy car ride to the mountains or wherever you're spending your Christmas holiday. Christmas, whatever you're celebrating, please enjoy it. Please spend time with the family. And from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for hanging out with us this year. We'll be back on Monday with a new episode and recapping all that. We're getting close here, Albert, but I'm looking
Merry
forward
Christmas, happy
Yes.
holidays to everybody, and we appreciate you guys coming out all year. If you want to give us a present, I guess you can. I'm going to go back to what we used to say like 5 years ago. What rate and review us, right? Like on Spotify and
subscribe.
and Apple News. Yep, there you go.
Yes.
There you go. So that would be a much appreciated Christmas gift for me and Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on next week.